the pressure of trying to have these deep rooted conversations about like my mental health and my emotions around the business with the board, it took a lot of courage for me to go and finally do that. And that year was the most stressed out I've ever been, because it's like right when I told them that I didn't want to be the CEO anymore and I wanted to go back to creating content full time, that was the same time where I called them up on Monday, poured my heart and soul out to the board and to my partner John. And then the next day or the day after that, they're like, all right, let's get on the phone and talk about things. But we weren't getting on the phone to talk about me. We were getting on the phone to talk about the shit that we had to do for the business, because we had just done a round of layoffs like 6 months prior. They're like, we think we need to cut ties and sell Juvie and do another round of layoffs. So all of a sudden, I finally felt like the clouds were clearing for 48 hours. Yeah. And then instead, they completely switch gears and they want to talk about, and I understand why that had to happen, especially with them trying to figure out what 100 Thieves would look like if I wasn't a part of the day-to-day anymore. And that interview had happened in the weeks following or the months following after that. So I had never really talked about where I was at in my head. So I had all these conflicting reports in my head about like, well, I want to talk about 100 Thieves in the business, and I don't want to overshare about where I'm at in my head. And there was so much to download. And you know how earlier in the interview I told you like I want to articulate something so people can like truly feel how I mean.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't. It was it's like I had an angel and devil on my shoulder. Like, what should I say? What should I not say? So it was a whole just perfect storm. And it was ripping pens, dude. It's fucking snow.
And I don't know if that's a podcast where you can be like, sorry, I just hit. You can say it here, but you can't say it.
I mean, I walked out that thing with the pen. They had to have known I was on the pen. They had to have known.
That shit is hilarious. That makes it. Yeah, that really puts it into fucking perspective. But yeah, you did talk about 100 Thieves a lot, and you talked about how like you kind of, because I think they were trying to push you to kind of admit. I mean, I love Colin Samir, so I'm not putting words in their mouth, but like push for you to admit that like 100 Thieves at the end of the day is a media company, and you were like, no, we kind of see it as like a sports company. So do you still? I know that it wasn't that long ago, but do you still feel that way? Like when it comes to media, sports, like the traditional sports, like algorithm, I guess, and then or model, and then merchandise. Did I say merch? Fucking.
You did now.
Content, merch, and then the sports model. Like, what do you think excels the most when it comes to Thieves? Like, how do you think of it?
I think 100 Thieves' biggest focus should be operating as an esports business. I think the focus should be on winning as many championships as possible, because all the upside that we get for our business is created through the excitement and hype of those teams winning and beloved moments for the fans to be a part of. I think content is, and the idea of being a media company, if we weren't gaming centric, if we had expanded out and did something similar to like Barstool, where we brought on a slew of casts of characters that cover all of pop culture, sports, everything and under the sun that Barstool does, I think the best way I could describe it is like BuzzFeed or Barstool, or even some things that IGN does from a program perspective, which I think I had mentioned on the podcast. All of those things at some point were like inspiration of things that we could have done with the business to sort of emulate or become like a media company. But in my opinion, it's really hard to scale. It's really hard to find individuals who understand the internet and content and culture enough to run with that. And I think that's a testament to like Dave Portnoy and how good he is at creating something that people want to be a part of, but also like finding folks who understand how the business needs to operate and run. And I don't think that's easy to do in gaming. I think the biggest issue with gaming and finding creators and even having creators part of 100 Thieves and any other team is that it's like Machinima was actually the blueprint we should have been looking at, and realized that no matter what, if anybody is in front of the camera at 100 Thieves, their entire goal, if they aren't already a full-time creator on their own and making enough money to provide for themselves, their entire goal is going to be to get big enough to go out and do it on their own. And some people might not agree with that, and there's things that you could do contractually, get people to operate in the way that you want and need them to. But it's just really hard to scale, I think, a media company on the internet if your focus is only one thing and one thing only, which is gaming. And not even the entire piece of the pie, and the entire pie, it was just like one small sub fucking section, one niche, which is esports, and some pockets of like bigger gaming titles like Fortnite and yada, yada, yada. It makes sense in my head, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, I can't spell it out further than that. But I think the things that are important to me right now, and we talked about my perspective changes, my emotions towards certain things changing. The only thing that I think I can control really, 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 really well is having the best players. Can't control the outcome, but having the best players across each team in the games that we care about to win as much as possible. Because in my mind, that makes the apparel more desirable. That makes the merchandise for the individual teams more desirable. It makes the team more desirable for partners to be a part of if they're trying to be a part of gaming or esports in general. It makes it authentic. It makes it premium. It makes it everything that traditional sports teams have when they win championships. It's like if you look at teams that are bringing in or in contention in the playoffs and championships, their partnerships business is much better than like a small regional team that has a small budget that isn't winning. They're a small market team for a reason. So I don't think it's apples to apples, but like for me, to your original question, I don't see us as a media company. I see us as like a team that creates content off of the things that we do in the game competitively, but also the friends and family that we have across, all of gaming in general.